Hope at Dawn, and as promised, we are going to have such a beautiful testimony being shared by one Felixs Kokonya, who is a reformed addict and also a reformed gangster. He was just telling us his story, even him being in the streets, and we just can't stop but, marvel at how God brought him out and how now God is actually using him to help other people. So let us welcome him to the studio. And I just want to also welcome you, our viewer who is watching us. Just know that you can communicate with us through our WhatsApp number 0708 222 And if you're following us through YouTube, you can definitely comment on the comment section. Tell us whatever questions or whatever words of encouragement you'd also love to share so that we can channel the same to Felixs Kokonya, who is with us in studio.
Right, Felix, welcome.
Asante sana.
Karibu.
It's good to have you this morning.
Good to also be here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you were off here, we were having this chit chat, and you are sharing with us your story, your journey. In a nutshell, who is Felix? Let's start from there.
So Felixs Kokonya is this boy that was born in Kibra, and fast enough I ended up becoming an addict because at class 3, I began smoking marijuana, and due to just influence, I began also smoking cigarettes. So after a while, I would say I ended up being an addict probably in class 5, 6, 7, and as I ended my primary school, I was an addict. So after my primary school, I entered into secondary school. And in my secondary school, I saw a lot of trouble because I was, I would say, expelled from many schools. First of all, I went to a boarding school at Sengani High School. And at Sengani High School, I became a peddler at Form 1.
Wow.
I was selling marijuana there and ended up planning a strike together with Form 3s and Form 4s.
And you're in Form 1.
And I'm in Form 1.
Troublemaker here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So second term, first year in my secondary school, I got expelled. Now I ended up in the streets of Kibra, and this is where I learned how to tout.
Yeah.
Became a matatu tout at a very young age. And I would wake up very early in the morning at 3. So kuna hizi gari zinaendaga Machakos country bus. So we would take people who are going up country to Machakos, and then at 7 or 8, I would leave the vehicle to the other person who anaichukuaga on the normal days. Yeah. So my parents saw that something was not good. And now they had to take me to another school. So in Form 2, I went to another school in Kisii called Mosocho Academy. And at Mosocho, my habits also followed me over there. And in second term, I think it was a pattern. In second term, again, I was sent out of the school because I planned a strike. Yeah, and this one, I planned it alone. Pamoja na some guys who also thought that ile kitu nilikuwa nawaambia ilikuwa ukweli. Because we used to pay like 5,000 shillings for entertainment, but we did not see the entertainment at school. So, so I ended up locking the doors from Form 1 to Form 4. And I convinced the whole school that tunalipa 5,000. But at that particular time, 5,000 was a lot of money. So they accepted the challenge. And we burnt the school. So after we formed the strike and it happened, I got sent out of the school again. And after I was sent out of that school, I would say I came back home. And my parents were like, again, you've been sent out of school. But then at that time, I had a lot of cheeky reasons. Jaribu kuwadanganya kidogo. And they told me that now I'll end up in the streets. So I went back to my touting. And at that point, now I learned how to drink alcohol. So after drinking alcohol, I learned how to go to town for, I would call them reggae escapades. So we would go to reggae escapades here in town. And this is where I entered a gang, whereby in the mornings, after having gone for a discotheque, we would get out of the clubs at 4. And we would go to the streets of Nairobi and we would rob people there so that we would fund our next escapade. I would say we would go on Friday evenings, and then we would come back on Saturdays, and then we would come back on Sunday, and probably also go for Wednesday, ladies' night. Yeah, so this became a habit of mine.
Yeah. I want to take you back before you take us there.
Okay.
And this is because you mentioned something which I feel is important for you to mention.
Yeah.
And this is about your talent.
Oh.
Because you have told us about your educational journey and the struggles that you had.
Yeah.
But there is something that you mentioned to us off air
yes.
about your talent.
Yes,
and I feel it's important for you to mention so that if there is a parent or even a child who is watching us this morning, they will be able to know how to connect with their talent, and maybe, just maybe, could be the trajectory that their lives will be transformed. You are very talented when it came to goalkeeping
Yes, yes.
in football.
Yeah.
Yes.
How was that, and at what age?
Yeah, at what age?
Yeah.
My goalkeeping, I think I began it long ago, and at class 4.
Yes.
While at Olympic Primary School,
Yeah.
I think the talent was discovered.
Yes.
And I joined the school team while in class 4.
Yeah.
I was the second keeper at class 4, but at class 5 and 6,
Yes.
now I became the main keeper. And I would say at the primary level, we did not have that much of a good team. But then they used to pick one player per team.
Yes.
So I was picked for, I think it was a zonal team.
Yes.
Yeah, so I was picked for the zonal team, but I did not get the opportunity to represent or even play because there was a keeper who was better than me, and he was bigger. I think he was in class 8 at that time at Toy Primary. And I did not get the opportunity to represent. But then when I went further, I used to play even at the community level. There is a team right now that plays the National League. It's called Kibera Black Stars.
Yes.
And at that time, it was called Muungano FC. So I was one of the players at Muungano. And I would say at 12, 13, 14, I became a keeper to the senior team. Yeah, and
12.
Yeah, and I played a lot of soccer. So there is a time that I was called for Nairobi under 17. And I was the main keeper for the Coca-Cola tournament.
Wow.
And at this time we had,
Nairobi
we had people who have names, watu wakubwa.
Yeah.
And I'm happy to have benched them. Yes, I'm happy to have benched them because the coach knew the potential I had. Yeah. So
and how did the parents
so
react to that?
It's funny because at Olympic Primary School, our field did not have any grass. So the field had red soil.
Yes.
And you know, being a keeper, you had to dive.
Definitely.
And I would go back home very dirty, I would say. So my parents did not take it well. And my parents were very, very much against my playing football. Because, you know, we had, our short was like this color. And we had a sky blue shirt. So imagine, I did not have attires to change, but I would play in my uniform. So I would come back home. My dad once told me that, he asked me if I was, you know, ule mtu anachimbaga choo. Ulikuwa umeenda kuchimba choo. And there is a time that he was coming from work. And he had his colleague with him. And I was walking right in front of them. And the colleague asked that, if your child comes back home looking like this, what would you do to the child? And my dad looked at me and said that, do you know this is
my son?
This is my son. So I think ilimuuma, I would say that. And he was against my playing football. And this hurt me. So I went to the fields. And I would spend the whole day in the field, probably just playing football. And you know, next to the field, this is where you have gangs, because that is a place where they know they can come together. So I started smoking marijuana at the field. Started smoking cigarette at the field. Just after playing football, I would go to the group of guys who are next to the field, then we would sit. Yeah, and now they would embrace me, telling me how good I was. But you were seeing Nikitu, I did not get at home. So I found it there, and probably this is where I began entering into this kind of habit. Yeah.
Wow, that's very interesting.
Yeah.
And would you say maybe the fact that your parents were not supportive maybe contributed to, you know, being rebellious and go in that direction of the gang?
Yeah, you know, after I transformed, I got an opportunity to go back, deep back to my life. And I think this is part of what probably made me become that rebel.
Yeah.
Because I felt not accepted, number one.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's like they did not know who I was.
Yeah.
Because I was this boy who was very good at football, but then my parents
Coaches
did not
are actually
accept.
searching for you.
Yeah, coaches, they would come home and knock at my dad's door.
Yeah.
But then, you know, my dad was that person who would say that itabidi tuende ushago. When we close school, we have to go to up country.
Yeah.
And I think it's good.
Yeah.
Because right now I also have a relationship with the people up country.
Yeah.
But then that opportunity for me to like explore more on my talent, I did not get it. Yeah.
Wow. And maybe even as we continue, maybe what would you tell parents who maybe are discovering a talent in their child and maybe they feel like this is distracting them from what they're doing, wasting time, you know? How can parents be of support to their children? And while you're at it, you can talk about the importance of boys and young boys being allowed to speak out what is in their heart.
Yeah, so I think it is important for a parent to know their children. Apart from the books that we read, it's good to know which talents your kids have and probably also build on that. Because one day you would have a child who is good at singing. And probably you did not give her the opportunity, her or him, the opportunity to grow in that particular sector. And you'd also have a child probably who is good in even boxing. So when you do not give him that chance for him to go to the club, you'll find this person boxing other people at the wrong panels. I think it would be good for us as parents, because I'm also a parent, to identify with your kid and probably just sit down with them and have a conversation. Just try to know what your kid likes and what the kid does not like, so that you have that rapport and build a bond with your kid. Because like right now we have an organization that speaks for the boy child. And this organization is called Jibonge Boy Child. And probably we just want to address the plight of a boy child who has been neglected by, I would say, a society, not even a community. Because, you know, as boy child, we have been suppressed. And the girl child is very empowered. But then the boy child is not empowered at all. And now we want probably to have a society where we have the boy child and the girl child coming together in marriage. But then the boy child does not have that enough information or exposure. So I think it would be good for the boy child also to be given an opportunity to express themselves, first of all, at the home level. Because, you know, in an African setting, when a boy child speaks out, they tell you that you've become a woman or a lady, that unaongea sana. But probably you're just trying to express yourself. You're trying just to let your family know who exactly you are. So I think it's good for us to give that chance to the boy child.
Let's fast forward the story to where you had left it, whereby now you are coming from all these parties and everything, and you're heading, as you're headed home or wherever, you now decide, hatuna za mfuko.
So you decide to rob people in town. So first of all, we also had to train, and we had to train boxing and taekwondo, because how can you defend yourself ukipatikana pale tao? So we had to train, and number one, we began just by strangling people. And after a while, we got to realize that some of our friends were walishikwa pale tao. Some were killed by mob justice.
Yeah.
And now we had to advance. So in advancing, we came up with pangas.
Wow.
So we had to weld machetes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that if someone resists, you have a weapon that can assist you guys in what you're doing. And after a while, my parents got to realize that right now I had become this person that is a rebel. Because I would chew miraa, they would see me outside in the streets smoking marijuana, they would see me smoking cigarettes. But at first, nakumbuka a while back, my parents were told, some people saw me, my neighbors, and they told my dad and my mom that I would smoke cigarettes and I would smoke marijuana. But my parents pushed that aside and said, no, mtoto wetu is very innocent, he cannot do that. I think if they would have intervened earlier, at least ningetoka pale. But then now it had become a habit that had grew deep in me. And I even began smoking heroin.
Wow.
Would smoke heroin. And I used to smoke heroin. There's a certain design that would smoke heroin. There's a foil that we would pick up and put the heroin on top of the foil. Then would fold a tissue. It would become a straight line. Then we tunawasha moto pale mbele. And then also make a pipe with the foil.
Yeah.
And now we would smoke it. Walikuwa naita Valley Road. Unashuka Valley Road tena unaipanda. And this was brown sugar. I think this was in 95, 96. Yeah, this was class 7, class 8. So I went with the habit up to something like Form 3. And now I graduated to smoking it with marijuana. So I would put it inside marijuana and smoke it as a cocktail. And for a while, I smoked it, and then haikuwa inanishika. So I graduated to now injections.
Yeah.
So after going for injections, you know, this now has become a little bit expensive.
Yeah.
Because the heroin is expensive, the alcohol that I take is expensive.
Yeah.
The miraa that I would chew is expensive. The bang that I need is expensive. So this lifestyle, I had to also upgrade. And this is where now I met with guys who are gun welding. And we began robbing people in the neighborhoods of Nairobi. We'd go to Karen, we'd go to Langata, I would go to Eastlands, and I had people who we had studied with the level of boarding schools.
Yeah.
So now my parents, I told you, they realized that something was wrong.
Yeah.
Because I would come back home with a lot of money. I would buy my own clothes, and my parents were like, where do you get this money? So they knew that I'd become a robber. And being a parent, they took me to rehabilitation. Number one, I was taken to a rehabilitation in Mombasa. And when I went to that rehabilitation in Mombasa, I stayed there for 3 months. But then they knew I was from Nairobi. So they would give me the opportunity to go outside and buy things for the people who were inside here. Our watoto wa Arabu, wadosi. And you know, these kids had a lot of money. So they would send me out to go and buy drugs. And I would go and buy heroin, come back and smoke with them. So I was in rehab. But then I used to smoke marijuana. I used to smoke heroin in the rehabilitation center. So my 3 months there did not help me.
Help you.
But I would say they helped me also advance and even learn more ways, because nimekutana watu wa coast. Pia tabia zao ni tofauti. So I came out of Mombasa, came back to Nairobi, and I went back to school because I saw my friends were going to school, and I would stay with other people from less fortunate families, and I realized that this is not my place. So it dawned on me that I needed to go to school. So I decided to go back to school. My parents too decided to take me back to school. So I went to school, and this time I went to a day school. And the day school was in Nairobi Milimani, just next to Serena here. So going to school, imagine I went to class and saw my friends back at home. Mabeste wote wale tunavutaga nao ngwai, wale tunaendaga nao tao, we were in class with them.
Wow.
And that same day we ran out of school, went to YMCA at the swimming pool there, and we had a date with these girls from State House Girls. So I felt like nimekuja mahali pazuri. And at that particular time we were caught that same day by our headmaster. They took us to the office, and the headmaster was like, wewe tena umeingia leo, umeepa leo. And I told him the reason is because I have found these people. And alinionea huruma. So I went back to class. We were beaten up, taken back to class, but then the headmaster realized something. There was a trend that sometimes I would come to school, sometimes I would not report to school. Because at some point I told you I was a conductor. So nilikuwa napanda gari. Nikipanda gari, I meet with someone I know. And this person tells me, hey, niaje, see, let me give you like 2 squads. And remember, I'm going to school. So I was like, put on a jumper different from the sweater at school. Na naingia kazi, napiga squad mbili, make money. So the headmaster realized that I would not come to school oftenly. And now they called my parent. And the decision was that when I enter school, there was a book at the headmaster's office. I would sign in the morning. I would sign again at break time when I go for break. After break, I would sign that book. When I go for lunch, I would sign it. After lunch, I would sign, and in the evening, I would sign. And you know, at school, we would carry our bags even to the toilet. Because hii shule ni hatari. Uwezieka bagi yako chini. They would steal your books. So at some point, after 1 week, the second week, I would come out of the class like I'm going to toilet, and I would say to hell, I go to town. There was a place we would meet with students from other secondary schools, from Isili, Pumwani, sit down, take alcohol, smoke our cigarettes, marijuana. So fast forward, I was sent out of that school. Because the headmaster said that I was not consistent. And I went to another secondary school called Don Bosco down at Pangani. So there also I was sent out of that school for beating up the deputy headmaster.
Felix.
There was a school next to ours, Isili High School. We used to put on the same uniform. So I had friends at Isili, from Kibra, from Kenyatta. And now my friends had gone for a strike. And they came to our school, opened our gate. And now we ran out of the school, like 5 of us. So the headmaster came chasing at us. The deputy headmaster. Now when we reached a certain corner, like so, I told the guys that, wacha ni deal na I beat him up because I was under the influence of marijuana and heroin. And I would regret later. I said, what did I do? But then I had already done it. And they sent me out of that school too. So my parents were tired. And they told me that, no, wewe ukienda shule, you chase out of every other school. So this time I was taken to another rehabilitation in Eldoret because I realized that something was not right with me. And imagine, at school I was very bright, from primary school to secondary school. The people that I would teach mathematics and what have you, these are the people that have gone ahead of me. And now I could see a brighter future for them. And I would ask myself that, what am I going to become? So the drugs took me off the field, and now they were taking me off school. So I went to rehabilitation in Eldoret, and this time I meant that I wanted to stop. So I spent there 3 months, soul searching, and this time I decided to follow God. Came out of Eldoret, and for 8 months I was sober. I was sober. But then what I realized is that I did not get that support group. And I went back to the same set of friends. I went back to the same community, the places that I would go to drink, to smoke. So I relapsed after 8 months.
8 months.
And now I became I would say, the worst version of myself. Because I was depressed and I knew I was hopeless. My friends had died. A lot of them were killed by police shootings, others were killed by mob justice in Kibra. And it was traumatizing to me because while I would walk, I would remember that so-and-so was killed here. Going to the other lane, I would remember someone who was, the head was chopped off the body. And I saw them. So if I passed through that lane, I would remember that such and such a thing happened here. So it was so traumatizing. And this is where now I entered deep into addiction. And at some point, my dad thought and said that, no, what we need to do is we need to take this person out of this country. Because after every other time, police officers would come to my home looking for me because I was a criminal. And now my dad knew that my life was in danger. So my dad talked to someone who is in Uganda, and he took me to a rehabilitation now in Kampala.
Uganda.
Yeah, so I went to a rehabilitation in Kampala. I'm happy that my dad was also someone who wanted me to change. And my mom also worked a lot for me to change because mamangu alinipeleka kwa waombaji wengi. Ombeni mtoto wangu abadilike. And I would still not change. I went to Kampala. And at Kampala, I stayed there for 3 months. After that, I told my parents that I do not want to come to Nairobi because now I was afraid to come back to the same community. And I looked for a school in Uganda by myself. Looked for a school in Uganda, and I went to that school, did an interview, and I passed tremendously. So the head teacher was like, wow, now we have a very bright student who is going to lift our school up. He told me that while I had gone to pick my results for the interview, and I was proud of myself. Said that this is a chance that I need to use. So I went to that school and stayed there for the first time, performed well. Now I revived my footballing skills, and I even picked one which was, I also played basketball there. So we took the school to national level, played our very best, but we lost. We were in both games, but then at least I was proud that I had done something good. But then in the next year, I don't know where the relapse came from. I relapsed back because, you know, in Uganda, they plant marijuana everywhere. And they, for medicinal use. So for me, I would look at the plants and, wow, they were very enticing, I would say. I craved a lot, and I would now make them, roll them, and smoke them. So after using these drugs, and with the bitterness I had in me, I realized I'd started fighting in school, started drinking again. I went for waraji there in Uganda. Now it's cheaper, and it's sold in bars. So if I had like 50 shillings, Kenyan shillings, you'd get 2 glasses. And I think my headmaster realized that I had become this person who was a nuisance in school. So they sent me out of school. And now, after they sent me out of school, I looked for another school very fast because I did not want to come back here. Told my dad that they've sent me out of a school, but then I've gotten another school in Tororo. And my dad, being that person who wants a better life for me,
so patient.
He took me to another school, that Tororo, Tororo College. So I studied there. This time I was in Form 3. Studied there Form 3, and I went to Form 4. But then at this school, ile sio shule, ile ni kambi ya masoja. We would wake up at 4. People would go, there's Form 4s and Form 6s, because, you know, in Uganda there is a level. They would take us to this quarry where we would go to train. And they used to train us taekwondo. So me, I was happy. Because unajua nimefika mahali tena ninapata mazoezi kidogo. So we went again and trained there. I also taught them boxing, and we would go out of the school and beat up other schools. So tena my habits caught up with me. I would go drink, go to club, come back to school. And this time, when I was coming out of a club, there are guys from other schools that came and surrounded me. So they wanted to fight me. And I injured some of them because I had beer bottles in my pocket. So nilivunja zile chupa. And I injured some of them. And I was caught and taken to police. Now when they brought these people to the police station, I was like, I did not believe that I'm the one who did this to them, because there is one who I cut his head using the bottle, na alishonwa kaka kama mtu ameshukwa piece. Imagine, kama mwenye ameshukwa lines.
Yeah.
So it was so sad for me, and at this point the police officers told me that if I was not a student, they would have killed me in Uganda. So they sent me up to the border.
Yeah.
And told me not to come back to UG. So I came to Kenya, and my parents were now tired. My dad told me that wewe sasa mimi nitakunawa.
Yeah.
Because what you're doing, no one has ever done it in our family.
Yeah.
So that made me feel very bad. I felt like someone who was neglected, mtu mwenye atakikani, an outcast. And now I went out now to the community. And I was like, now nilikuwa nimeshakufa roho. Said if people are going to kill me, really, let them kill me. So sasa nikaishi tu like a vagabond pale nje Kibira. But then crime haikukuwa ndani yangu. I had already stopped being a criminal, but then I was still an addict. And I would try to drink down my sorrows. I would try to smoke marijuana. I would try to inject myself so that I would forget everything.
Yeah.
At some point I was suicidal, wanted to take my own life. But then in 2020, I realized that the community did not want me. My family did not want me. So I went and stayed with some street families. There is a place there at 42 while you're crossing to Jamhuri, crossing the railway line. So there are guys there who were very fond of me. And there is a name they used to give me because of boxing. So they used to call me champion. Champion. So I felt that these people embraced me. And I stayed with them there for a while. So it is at this place where it dawned to me that I needed to change my life. Because there is one night I was sleeping and I had bought everything. And nilikuwa na heroin kando yangu, mogoka, alcohol, everything. I had everything next to me. And the guys were sleeping. But for me, I was awake for some reason. And I looked up and I talked to God and asked God, did you make me to become such kind of a person? Just thought of the potential that I had.
Yeah.
And I realized I needed to make a decision. And this needed to come from deep down. So I talked to God and I prayed and asked God to give me direction. And I looked at all the things that I had.
Yeah.
Imagine I spoke to them and told them that I've worked with you guys for so long. Yeah. But I think at this point I need to leave you guys aside and do something different. Yeah. And one of the guys was awake. And he began to wake up the other guys, telling them that I had run. This guy is mad. He's speaking to these people. I'm telling him, yeah. I spoke to these things, and in the morning I called my mom, told her that I needed transportation to a friend of mine. There's a pastor friend of mine in Homa Bay who is dear to my heart even right now. And motivate me, used to call me and pray for me. Yeah. So I said, no, I think I need God. Yeah. Wow. So I asked my mom for transportation. And she told me that I cannot give you money. I know you don't have money to buy your stuff. I told my mom that kindly don't send me money, but send me a ticket. Just send me a ticket that would take me to that place. Yeah. So she sent me a ticket, and in the morning, that was after a day, I talked to her in the morning, then she sent me a ticket for the other day. So I went to this friend of mine, and I had never been to that place. I went there with my dreadlocks, dirty. And this pastor embraced me, took me to his home, and introduced me to the wife, and told the wife that I have brought you a son. Yeah. So take care of this boy. And I realized that he had people also there who he was taking care of. Yeah. So I stayed there for 4 months. And it is during these 4 months that I got to realize myself. Yeah. Because I would sit under a tree and my life would play just behind my head. And I decided that I did not want to be that person that the community does not want. But I thought of the influence I had, because I had an influence of bringing people together. Yeah. be it in football, be it when we would go to our drinking sprees. And I thought that what if I would go back and look for the people who have transformed and sit down with them and probably see how best we can talk about whatever it is that we have gone through, so that other people who are going through such can also get help. And I came out of that place after 4 months, came to my home. But then when I sat down with my parents, they asked me that, did you see any of your friend coming to you when you were in trouble? I looked, and actually I did not find anyone who came in time of need. And they told me that now you need to transform. You don't need to go back to Kibera. You need to look for your life because you have your kids here. At some point, I also had a relationship, and I had 2 sons from the relationship. So my dad told me of the need to care for my children. But then after a while, I had this dream, and God was telling me to go back to the streets of Kibera, that he is going to lead me. And nikapuuza. At first I pushed that aside. And then the next night again, the same dream came to me. And I was like, what? And now the pastor I went to also called me and confirmed that he has also received such kind of a message. So I asked to God and told God that if it is really you, I'm just requesting that probably put these people together so that when I get out of my place and go to that place, let me find them in this sitting. So when I reached there, I found these guys from the street families asking that, what is happening today? Because we are seated here together. And I bought them some unga ugali, bought some chicken, and we made a meal together. Just told them about the vision that God had given to me. Now they saw me this time different. You know, I transformed.
From the person they
nilikuwa nimenona. Now they looked at me and said that, ulikuwa Rehab. Hebu nipatie fegi. I told them I don't smoke anymore. I don't drink anymore. Now now I've embraced salvation. And I told them that I wanted to pray with them. And some of them told us that, huyu anataka kutuibia, that you want us to close our eyes so that you can steal from us.
Oh my God.
I told the ones who can close their eyes to close, and the ones who hawatafunga macho waendelee. So I knelt down and prayed there. So after the prayer, I'm happy because these guys felt the presence of God there. And they told me that, wow, right now we know that something is going to happen here. So I talked to them about the vision that God gave me, and they embraced this idea. I'm happy. This time was COVID period. And no crowds would gather around. There is a police station next to this place. Now the police officers came and asked, which kind of gathering is this? When they saw me, they said, if it is you who is talking, we will give you an opportunity to talk. Let's only keep distance. So they also sat and they were part of the conversation. Because long time ago, I would have like 6 cases per day in their station. And now I'm this person who came and I'm trying to talk to these people on how to transform, how to reform. So we ended up forming an organization with the street families, and we looked around what they have. There is a dump site there. So we looked at better ways of solid waste management. We looked at how probably we'll do activities like cleanups. Imagine these are the people, guys call them chokoras. And I will tell you that right now, if you go to that place, there is an organization that brought toilets there. It's just near a marketplace, hapo kwa roundabout. There is also Safaricom brought some kokotenis. There is an organization called Muungano wa Wanavijiji that gave us a grant. We went to the hospital, Kibera level 3. We made a plastic collecting point there. We bought a uniform and also did some, we bought some tools for cleanups. So right now, at least we have something that is happening there. And personally, I formed an organization called Alibomba CBO. And
Alibomba.
yeah, and I'm happy because the idea that I had at the pastor's place, I think it was God who was speaking to me, because I came back, looked at the people who were in addiction long time ago. We sat down and had strategic planning meetings, and we got to realize that it is not only addiction and crime that we need to address, but then we had an umbrella, I would say, pillar of mental health. And now our organization, Alibomba CBO, actually advocates for mental health.
All right.
We sensitize the public. We also have programs that pertain mental health. And right now we've had tremendous success because a lot of people have transformed. A lot of people have gotten out of hopeless situations. And right now they are back to work. Right now their families are stronger. Because for us, you know, we realize that if you're not infected, then in one way or another you are affected. If one person is an alcoholic, then the whole family unit probably needs psychosocial support. So we usually identify an individual, then we go to the family and talk to the families. We have expertise on board who saw our work and joined. We have professional psychologists and psychiatrists. The lead psychiatrist in Kibra and Langata is also our member because she saw our work and she decided to join suit. So we have a team that is passionate about mental health, and the majority of our team members are people who have been through different mental health related issues. A majority of them have lived experience. Others have been caregivers at some point to people with mental health related issues. So we have a strong team. And out of it, we also have Alibomba women. We have women who are vulnerable, and we have put them together. Right now they're doing tremendous activities. We just formed last year, but right now at least we're seeing them doing great. We also have the organization I told you about. It's called Jong Boy CBO. And we formed this organization basically because we have gone to many workshops, but then we realized that the girl child is over-empowered, I would say so. But we formed the organization not to contend with the girl child, because we have ladies on board. We only want to complement each other so that we can get a better boy child who in future would get into a marriage and would probably know how to handle the girl child.
In a few minutes, we'll be giving you an opportunity to share with us your contacts and how we can be able to get in touch with those organizations and even plug in. Maybe someone wants to plug in. But there are different sorts of addictions that people are fighting and are facing. And someone is asking a question here. Stakam says, the topic today is very encouraging. It's wonderful to know that he is and he was also a talented footballer. Please ask him to advise young men who are addicted to betting, since majority involve football. And of course you will agree with me, Felix. I also, being a football fan, but every other Saturday, every other Sunday, unapata majamaa na exercise book. You wonder what's happening. Kumbe, it's all these things. Odds. So they are calculating these odds. It's an addiction in itself.
It's an addiction.
Talk to them.
Probably I would tell them that, you know, in addiction, it's funny because even when you begin drinking, the first drink is very enticing. The second drink, the third drink. But it reaches a place where now it becomes painful. You see someone going to, let me give a scenario. Probably you would want to go to work and job sio mbali, it's just near here, but then you have to go very far to look for alcohol so that you can come back to job to function. Ati lazima ukimbie ufungue kichwa ndio urudi kazi. So you've become a slave, number one. And number two, now it bites because your pocket inaumia kidogo. You maybe you have responsibilities. At some point you'll become a parent. imagine utakuwa una choose between your house, watu walale njaa, and your drink. So, and most probably you will choose your drink. Huko nyuma ukirudi unakuja na ma excuses. You even fight your wife. Lakini shida imetoka kutoka kwa hii addiction. So in betting, it's also the same. Because you begin slowly. Unatuma pale bao. Unaona umeshinda. It's very enticing. But in future, you realize that if you weigh the two sides, unagundua imekuletea loss sana. And this happens even to the rich, not even watoto peke yake. You get someone going to a casino and he loses a lot. So this is an addiction, and I would tell someone that there are three phases of an addiction. Number one is the social part of it. Then number two, there is the problem part of it. And then number three is now the addiction bit of it, that you cannot do without. Ukiamuka asubuhi hata kabla uangalie message, nimekutumia nikikwambia blessed morning. Number one, unaangalia nimeshinda nini, unapata umekuliwa. And now that makes you enter into the day very bitter, number one, because umekuliwa. Number two, it kills your spirit. Number three, inafanya you are not that person you're supposed to be. Because you're not free to speak your mind. Unapata umekuwa captive. So addiction, betting, it seems little when you're entering into it, but then it stings a lot. And we've seen people losing their lives. There is that university, a guy who put a single bet. I don't know, it was Real Madrid with another small team. Akijua Real Madrid itashinda, hii lazima. So akaweka pale sijui fee yake yote. I'm telling you, ilikuwa news ilikuwa mbaya, and he hanged himself up. So I think I would advise them not to get into betting. And probably it would be good for them to also seek help. Because addiction kama betting pia si rahisi kutoka pale. Si rahisi kutoka pale. But then you need constant advice, and you also need to just talk to yourself and shift your focus. I have a friend from Norway, tuko naye pale. He usually tells us to shift our focus.
All right. Rogers Wambua says God is faithful, and
God
indeed
is faithful.
we serve a faithful God. Thank you so much, Felix, for sharing your story. We had to cut it short because of time, but of course we have gotten a grip of what you went through and the transformation. For me, the best thing is that out of it was born this Felix, who is now very upright, who is now an example to young people. A stone that was rejected once, now families and parents are bringing their children to you. Yet they had threatened you, but now they are bringing their children so that you may guide them, so that you may counsel them, so that you may give them a word of wisdom. And we pray that God will continue to use you, that He will enlarge your boundaries, that in whatever that you need, He will meet you at your point of need.
Amen. And I think the most beautiful thing is seeing the fact that God spared your life. God kept you alive. He kept your heart alive. And I think God was using your father not to give up on you, because I think it has to be a very strong parent who has to go through all these things, rehabilitation, school, this and that, and not giving up. I believe that was God who was chasing you, because a father is literally another way in which we see God, that chasing after you and not giving up on you. But I love the fact that when you called on God, He answered, because when you called on Him, He came through for you. He heard you, and He has healed you, and now He's literally using you to help other people. And I think it's something for us to also notice that even the devil himself was providing avenues whereby he will steal your destiny. But God was also chasing you down. And at the end of it all, God won, and the victory is His. So we are glad to have you. And I think this is so encouraging for those who are watching, who are dealing with addictions, who do not know how to free themselves. I think from Felix's story, we can learn that call on to God. and he will answer you. If you seek him with all your heart, he will hear you, he will transform you, he will change your life, and Felix is a living testimony of that.
Amen. Amen. Maybe you can share your contacts or on the organization as well.
Probably you give me a minute to share something.
All right.
So we have a project, and I'm happy because our work, someone from Norway noticed it.
Yeah.
And right now he's here. He came last year, March, for 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And then he came back September, and he was here to November. And right now he has come back because we have a project with him, and we want to do something on cybersecurity that would help the people who have gotten out of mental health related issues, so that we can empower them.
Yes.
And right now we are working on it. So I would like people also to watch that space, because I know it is something that is going to like help people transform their lives.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So probably I would share our contacts. And number one, our number there at Alibomba is 011 30 68 435. 011 30 68 435. That is our contact at Alibomba. And you can get us on Facebook, mostly, at Alibomba CBO. That is our group. And we also have another group, Mental Health Awareness and Solutions. That is also a group that we have on Facebook, and it was formed by our friend from Norway. We also have Mental Health Kenya and Mental Health Swahili.
Yeah.
Those are groups that you can find us on. And there is also a group for Jong Boy Child. It's called Jong Boy Child CBO. That is also where you can find us on the Boy Child platform.
All right.
Our website is www.alibomba.cbo.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Wow.
I know we will be interacting with those platforms as we go along. Thank you.
For sure. And I think the most important thing, even that will summarize everything, is for people to go to that website, www.alibomba.cbo, right? And then also for the number of Alibomba, that is 011 30 68 435. So you can do that. If you need any sort of help, you need a support system. I think you mentioned that you relapsed at one point after 8 months because you didn't have a support group that held you together. So I think it's important for us to realize that you can do this on a solo journey. You have to join with other people who will also help you with the accountability as well. So thank you so much, Felix, for gracing our studio. We were saying you're the first gentleman on the one day at a time. And thank you for being vulnerable to share that story. I believe that that story has probably freed someone who needed to hear it. So we give glory to God.
Amen.
For sure.
Amen. Amen. And thank you so very much also for tuning in. Thank you for the messages, them that we were able to read. Thank you so very much. And of course, we'll be replying to others that we were not able to reply to during the show. This has been One Day at a Time right here at Hope at Dawn. By God's grace, we will be doing this again, same time, same place tomorrow. And being a Wednesday, it will be the Christian Walk. So you need to stick around for the same. We start at 7 a.m. and we end at about 9 a.m. So make sure you are joining us. My name is Gichuru.
And my name is Beatrice Watare. Have yourself a lovely day.